Okay, we're going to start with vowels and consonants. Anybody have any questions? Yes, Wendy.
Page 184,
Uh-huh.
the first line. It says languages of
Can everybody be quiet for a minute?
the languages of the world have from 3 to 24 or more different vowel qualities.
Vowel qualities.
Vowel qualities.
Yeah?
And I wonder how the number 24 come out.
Okay, let me borrow your book.
It's 10.
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yes. I was thinking this material doesn't sound right for today. You can think about it when we get to that chapter. Okay, how about questions on this chapter? Yeah. Uh-huh.
I don't understand how to calculate the similarity using the triangle.
Triangle. Everybody listen to this one. Triangle. In our study on Taiwan English, most people said triangle, which is wrong. So some teachers must be teaching it, otherwise I don't know where it's from. Right, Vivian? Yeah? Some teachers must be teaching it, otherwise where did we get this? It's very consistent, Taiwan English. Yeah.
I think it also has to do with triangular.
Yes, I've thought of that because the adjective form is triangular, which is correct, but the noun is triangle. Everybody fix that. Why would so many people make mistakes based on the adjective form? Because photograph, photography, nobody says photograph, right? Although maybe in that case, the adjective did influence the noun pronunciation. But it's almost 100%. In Taiwan English, people say triangle. It's coming from somewhere. So please know it's triangle, 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 triangular, triangle, yeah.
And if it has 4 angles, is it rectangle?
Rectangle.
Rectangle.
Rectangle, same. They're all the same. Rectangle, rectangle. I didn't even think of rectangle. Do some people say rectangle? Okay, thanks for the information. Because I didn't use that as an item in the recording. I only used triangle. And almost everybody said triangle. Triangle, rectangle. All right, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt like that, but it was an important point. Go ahead.
If they consider the
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Quiet? Are we okay? Unless you need to solve something here. Is it okay? Okay, sorry.
the listener consider the second word to be twice as far apart, they should give them a number twice as big. So I don't know how they give the numbers.
Okay, I'm going to need to borrow your book. I had too many books today. I didn't want to bring this. So you're reading right where?
Oh, here.
Thank you. Another way of calculating the degree of similarity between a pair of sounds is simply to ask people to give a number corresponding to how similar they are. In one way of doing this, a so-called free magnitude estimation technique, they can give any number to the first pair of words they hear. Then, if they consider the next pair of words to be twice as far apart, they should give them a number twice as big. If half as far apart, then they should give half the previous number, and so on. In one experiment, this procedure was used to estimate the degree of similarity between all 15 pairs composed of the syllables pa, ta, ka, ba, da, ga. And the table shows the results for each pair. Did I cover everything you want to ask about? And your question again.
How to transform those numbers into those triangles.
Ah,
The distance.
I see. I think they're just using a unit of measurement. They're just using a unit of measurement like centimeters or something. I think they're just using centimeters or something like that, some unit of measurement for each side, because 4.750 is this long and then 3.205 is this long. I think that's what they're doing.
Is this later that there's this is a two-dimensional figure, and that means those listeners have at least 2 ways to think about the sound.
Yeah.
And I don't
Know what the other one is? You're asking what the other one is, or
I
what?
don't know what this concept means.
Ah, okay, let me think about it. Oh, I think they're talking about these two methods. The first one is confusion matrices. The first one, that's the first method, and this is the second method. So that's what they mean. There are two different methods. And in this method, we can make this table, and then we can draw triangles, just using these as like measures of centimeters or whatever. Does that make sense or not?
So what are those spaces?
The spaces in the triangle? It just shows how different they seem to be from each other. From pa to ka, from ka to ta, from ta to pa. They just, pa and ta are this different. Ta and ka are this different. And then pa and ka are this different. So we're just spreading them out, how far apart each one is from the others. Does that make sense, or does it need more explanation? It makes sense? It's okay. Oh, I'm relieved. Thank you. Sometimes the methods and the measurements and tables don't make really good sense. You should ask, and I will do my best to try and sort it out for you. Okay? Anything else? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to have to look at it. I almost brought the book, and I thought my bag is too heavy. I'm sorry. And sometimes you have no questions. You just sit there. So I thought maybe it'll be one of those days. I don't need the book. Okay. So you're asking about what this figure means? All right, let's read it. And then the print has gotten smaller, so excuse me. Identification of 6 stimuli formed from a token of bad with a progressively shorter vowel so that it sounds more like bat. The scale on the left allows the percentage of times each stimulus was identified as bad, or not allows, sorry, shows the percentage of times each stimulus was identified as bad as opposed to bat in solid points. The scale on the right shows the percent correct in saying whether the 5 pairs of adjacent words were the same or different. Okay, this is actually kind of complex. But first of all, we're going to have 6 different stimuli, 6 different pronunciations of a syllable. And they range from bad to bat. Bad, bat. Those are the 2 extremes. So going from bad to bat, we're going to make the vowel shorter and shorter. So bad, 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 bat, bat. Then we end up with bat. So altogether 6. And the scale on the left, they have 2 different scales here. Actually, they're the same numbers. But it says the scale on the left shows the percentage of times each stimulus was identified as bad as opposed to bat. So each time they heard bad, 他每一次听到 bad, 他这边就有一个点. And then bat is solid points. No. Each time the stimulus was identified as bad as opposed to bat is in solid points. So 他每一次听到 bad, 他就是写个 solid point. The scale on the right shows the percent correct in saying whether the 5 pairs of adjacent words were the same or different. So, 它有5对，就是紧邻的字 from bad to bad, a little shorter. So it shows whether the percentage of times that they were correct when they said that bad is the same as bad, or when they said that bat is the same as bat. So if they're right next to each other, 它的正确率有多高? Those are the open circles. This is actually quite complex, but if you sit down, this is what they're saying. So every time, 它的那个正确率是 open circles, 是紧邻的字，就是旁边的字，这个字跟旁边的字来比的话，如果对的话，它是用那个 open circle 来表现出来，它的比例，正确率多大。But then the one on the other one is the percentage of times each stimulus was identified as bad. 就他说 bad 有几次，所以纯粹是所有的 stimuli 里面，它的答案是 bad 有几次，不管对不对 ，bad 有几次。第二个是说正确率。So you're being asked a question about 2 different words. Are they the same or different? Or 你说这个是 bad 还是 bad? 你说 bat 有多少次，它就给你那个黑色的 circle。可是你的紧邻的字，你答对了，要给你一个圈圈来表现出来。This is actually, it sounds much more complicated than it is. Does it make sense or not? Or do you need a little time to think about it? Do you think you'll get it if you think about it a minute? Yeah, but I've told you what it is. You just need to think about it because it is complex. It takes a little bit of thinking and then it will be okay. It's still complex, but it makes sense. Okay? Anything else? Anything else? Sorry, wrong chapter. Anything else? If not, please hand in your work. What chapter for next time? Right. So we have just finished 10, then we have 15, then we have 16, and that's the end of the book. So we're going to have to crowd in a lot of stuff. What we're going to do today is finish chapter 8. We're not doing the exercises today. That's for next Monday. Then we're going to go through the decibels tutorial, which is heavy, but I don't expect you to understand it all. I'm not really going to test you on it, unless it's a really basic question that sort of is in the textbook or we talked about a lot. And that's it. That's our plan. If we have time after the tutorial, we'll go on to chapter 9, but I doubt that will happen. The tutorial is quite heavy. We're going to finish chapter 8. Miranda.
Page 212.
Third, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the fourth complete paragraph. Second paragraph under individual differences.
Individual variation is readily apparent when studying spectrograms.
That's pretty good. Your spectrograms is now perfect. That's good. Apparent, I guess in the East they say apparent, no problem. But just for consistency, apparent, readily, they're all 到3. So variation, readily apparent. Spectrograms, 全部都是到3. It's fine. Keep going.
In summarizing the uses of spectrograms, we were careful to say that they showed relative vowel quality. It is clearly true that one can use spectrograms, such as that in figure 8.14, to tell that the speaker has a higher vowel in 3 than in the beginning of the vowel in here.
Let's make sure we understand everything. When we look at spectrograms, we find a lot of individual variation. For example, the spectrogram that gave everybody so much pressure, right? I dislike some linguists. You saw individual variation between the one in the book and between the one I made, right? They're both native speakers. Of course, I guess they're different dialects, but you see a lot of individual variation. That wasn't just dialect variation. Whenever we're reading spectrograms, you will find there's some things that are different just because they're different individuals reading. 所以有一些是个人的一些变异了，不一样。And when we were summarizing the uses of spectrograms, that was right before this section, was at the bottom of 211. We may now summarize the kinds of information that can and cannot be obtained from spectrograms. This is the bottom of 211. And it says that, where can we find something about relative? It's the next paragraph down. Spectrograms are usually fairly reliable indicators of relative vowel quality. That sounds like a pretty important sentence if he mentioned it again. So it's the second to last line on 211. 211, 要不要翻一下，看一下。Second to the last line. Spectrograms are usually fairly reliable indicators of relative vowel quality because every individual has their own baseline and we have our own space. So within that space, we will be able to see the difference between and for that person, but we can't generalize it to everybody else. The differences will be clear and reliable for that one person, for the data from that one person. We cannot just take the data in numbers and then expect it to apply to other people. All right, so individual variation is important. When we look at a spectrogram, 都是相对的差别，还蛮可靠, but we can't use absolute numbers and generalize based on those. And then it says, it's clearly true that one can use spectrograms such as that in 8.14 to tell that the speaker has a higher vowel in 3 than in the beginning of the vowel in here. So in 3, E, 3. Compare it to the vowel I use in here. Mine is pretty high. 我的还蛮高的. But for some people, the E in here, and even mine, if you compare it, listen, 3 here, 3 here. Can you hear my E going down a bit to I? It's not to I, but it's going down a bit. 3 here, 3 here, here 没有那么 E. Here 有点太夸张了. 3 here. So there's a difference, okay, between my vowels in those two words. So in 8.14, let's go to 8.14. This sentence is, again, he left here 3 days ago. So compare here and 3. The first vowel in here to the vowel in 3. You've already transcribed that. You've segmented and transcribed it. So the vowel in 3 should be more like an E than the vowel in here. Is that right? That means F2 should be higher. Is it? Is F2 higher? That's what they're talking about here. So just so you can see very concretely what they're talking about. Go ahead.
One can also use Foreman plots such as that in figure 8.5 to show that the average American English vowel in hood is farther forward than that in hod.
All right, let's look at 8.5. All right, it's 8.4 here, which is also marked CD 8.3, right? Because it's the American one. And what are they telling us to notice here? That the average American vowel in hood is farther forward than that in hod. So compare oo to ah. And what do we look at to compare what is forward? F1, F2, or F3? F2, right? Because F2 is forwardness and backness. And we've also got roundness counted in. So, oo is more forward than ah. It's higher. Okay? Then, go on.
But it is not so,
but it is not so easy.
But it is not so easy
good.
to say whether the vowel in a given word as pronounced by one speaker is higher or lower than that of another speaker.
So, if we find that within one person's data, we find that one vowel is higher. One is more E, the other one is more I. One is more forward, oo, than ah. That's more back. These comparisons are valid for a single speaker, but we can't compare the oo to, in this person, with the oo of another person. It's not reliable because everything is relative. 它整个尺度不一样. That's all they're saying. 每一个个人尺度会不一样. So we can't make direct comparisons. Let's go on.
In general, when two different speakers pronounce sets of vowels with the same phonetic quality, the relative positions of these vowels on a Foreman chart
Yeah.
will be similar.
Right.
But the absolute values of the Foreman frequencies will differ from speaker to speaker.
From speaker to speaker. 第一个 speaker 要低一点 because it's not the tonic. You don't have to, you said that your 技巧 was making your voice higher, but you don't have to 刻意把声音弄得高. You will still get it right. 你不是因为声音高，你是因为你调整过来了. So 你不用刻意高. So, in general, when two different speakers pronounce sets of vowels with the same phonetic quality, the relative positions will be similar, but the absolute values will differ. We're just repeating what we just said. Nothing new. Go on.
Figure 8.18 shows the formant. 18 shows the formants for the vowels in heat, hid, head, hat, hot, hood, hood, as pronounced by two speakers of Californian English. The Californian English of most university students does not distinguish between hot and hot, or between cut and caught, so it was possible to show only 7 of 8 vowels in figure 8.3. The relative positions of the vowels in each set are similar, but the absolute values are different.
But the absolute values, right again?
But the absolute values are different.
That's better, good. So let's look at 8.18, and you can see here we've got empty circles and then blacked in circles. These are the same vowels, and in theory they all are speaking the same dialect, namely Californian U.S. English. However, we see really big differences, don't we? We can see that the one with the circles, the white circles, is very stretched out, very long, and the other one is very compressed. 对不对? So they're different in that way. We can't transfer values from one to the other easily, but 它是不是相对之间的关系都维持一样的呢？这个比那个还前面，这个比那个还要低，是不是差不多？都一样嘛？ So you can see that E is always going to be higher than I. You can see that E is always going to be more front than U, or I is even going to be more front than U. All of those relative values are staying the same. 相对之间的关系没有变，只是它的长短会有点不一样而已。Right? That's all we're saying. Let's go on.
No single technique will enable one to
We'll enable one. Can you link? Enable one. Right, right.
to average
Make it 2 syllables. Again?
to average out
Average out. Yeah, there's a sort of a demi-syllable. It's not really a full syllable. We don't say average out. It's not wrong, but it sounds too long and loso. Average out. It's pretty much only 2 syllables. Average.
average
Yeah, just like family, we usually say family, right? Or mathematics, we say mathematics.
the individual characteristics so that a Foreman plot will show only the phonetic qualities of the vowels.
All right, everybody understands that so far. We have no very simple way of taking out all of these 个人化的变异. We can't take it out easily. There's no easy way to do it. So we're always going to have to deal with that in our data. Go on.
One way to deal with this problem
With okay.
is probably to regard the
Average.
average frequency of the Foreman as an indicator of the individual's health sign, and then express the values of the other Formans as percentages of the mean for Foreman's frequency.
All right. That takes a little thinking. So stop and figure out this sentence in your head. It's not hard, but it's mathematical, so you need to process it in your brain in a mathematical way. Read it in your head and then see if you understand. If you don't understand, then tell me, I don't get it, can you explain it? We're trying to deal with this problem of individual variation. It's not easy to take it out. Here's one way that we can sort of deal with it. Not perfectly, but it deals with it a little bit. Look up when you're ready. Okay, how about if I just explain it as well as I can? If it's still not clear, then you ask questions. We're trying to deal with these big differences. We know that the relationships remain the same. We're just sort of stretching it out and we're compressing it. But that makes for sloppy data. This data is hard to deal with because there's so much variation. We can't collect a bunch of really good representative formant values if the individual differences are so great. How do we deal with that? I mean, the relationships stay the same, but the formant data is quite different. The numbers, the frequency data for the for the formants is quite different from person to person. So that's going to make our data confusing and complicated. We want to find a way to try to normalize our data so that the individual differences are not so 悬殊. Miranda, that make sense? It makes sense, thank you. Sometimes I don't read your faces correctly. So with these big differences in individuals, they're still producing the same vowel qualities as far as the ears of an English speaker is concerned. Like I'm going to hear very different formant values, but because the relationship to each other is all right, I will hear and they're exactly the same vowel to me, even though they have different I only made different frequency differences. I only made frequency differences because I'm the same person. But if someone has a very large head or a very small head, the whole 尺度会变，因为头的大小，这是很重要的一个因素，不是唯一的。Another one is 内部的那个构造，可能跟头的大小没有直接的关系，可是我们就可以选头的大小来作为一个 indicator， 说这个可能是一个头很大的人，这是头比较小的人念出来的。So if we know the size of their head， 我们可以用那个比例来把这个 data 先把它那个做个转换，以它的头的比例可以稍微让那个 data 平均一点，对不对？头很大，我们就缩小那个距离；它头很小，我们也去把它放大一点。那这样的话，所有的 data 都比较相符了。Now it's clear, right? The last way I think was clear, is expressing it relatively clearly. So, yeah.
To understand, why can we use F4 as an indication of the individual design?
Because we've already identified what F1 measures, it's height. F2 is front backness plus rounding. F3 is rounding and R, rhoticization, right? Mostly. It's not the only thing. 没有那么单纯, but that's easy. I mean, those are good enough for our purposes. F4 we hardly ever pay attention to, although we did pay attention to it once. Let's remind ourselves when we noted F4. Let's go to our list that we made recently or read in the book. Do you remember where we saw F4 when we were talking about spectrogram reading? How about retroflexes? Look on page 204, table 8.1. And look at the fifth item down. It says retroflex, page 204. 有没有? What does it say? General lowering of the... Right, and we've been saying all along, we only need one. 1 and 2 are the most important ones. 1 and 2 are by far the most important. R and rounding in 3 is also very useful. So 1, 2, and 3 are what we're mainly interested in, especially 1 and 2. Beyond that, we're not so interested. But we already ran into one use for 4, and that is here. It says that for retroflexes, not only the third formant is going down, but the fourth is going down too. So we have had a use for it. In addition, we're going to match another index with F4, namely 头的大小。到某一种程度 F4 会反映出头的大小。That's what Ladefoged and others have concluded based on the data that they've collected. Okay, so F4 tells us something. We're going to pretend that it's a pretty good reflection of how big the speaker's head is. Okay? So that's our assumption. It's maybe not completely reliable, but it's good enough for a working assumption. So let's just regard, 我们把它视为，把 F4 视为是头的大小的一种反应，的一种 index. And then 我们用 F4 的比例来调整其他的那个 formant data 的比例，因为那比例都差太多了，就是有的距离太长，有的距离很短。我们用 F4 的头的大小来把所有的那个其他的 formants 的那个 frequency data， 我们可以缩小或者放大，让它变成比较一致，比较能互相比较，因为这样它尺度会比较近。我们就是用 F4 来调整其他的 data 的尺度，让它那个尺度不要每个人尺度不一样，让每个人的尺度比较接近。That made sense, I thought. Yes? 可以吗 Miranda? Not so clear? Did somebody understand what I said? And then can you please explain it in Chinese? Somebody?
I understand, but I mean, so Decibels defines F4 as
A measure or index of?
head size.
Yeah.
Because F4 actually somehow roughly indicate the head size.
Yes. That's it. Then you got it. Thank you. If that's the only thing you were worried about, it doesn't, yeah?
But that for we still don't say why he.
Ours is not to reason why. We're not going to question that right now because it's going to get too complicated. I don't know if it's right or not, but we're just now making sort of like we're doing a thought experiment. 我们现在做个假设，我们就假设它可以反映出头的大小。He's hedging. He says, let's regard it as. 我们把它视为是，试试看。So we don't know. He's got his reasons. I personally don't know enough to answer that any further. But right now, it's just a thought experiment based on an assumption. The assumption may be right or wrong, or maybe partly right. We're just going to try it out. 我们试试看. All right? Well, I'm glad that you're questioning these things. You should be doing that. Okay? And then we're going to express the values of the other formants as percentages. 所以我们把所有的人的那个 F4 给每个人一个 percentage， 对不对？比较所有的人的 F4， 就每个人最大的是100%，对不对？那最小的可能是50%or whatever it is. Okay, we give them values， 然后从50到100，我们可以把它的相差，把它那个也应用在其他的 formant data 调整，来把它的尺度变成比较接近。Okay?
Here the mean fourth formant is the mean average of all people or individual?
Of each individual. So the mean fourth formant, we're going to get lots of data for F4, but we're just going to take an average of all the data. And computers can do that. It's not so hard. 就它从头到尾所有的 F4 的 frequency 全部把它平均起来，就取一个值，一个平均值。And then we use that as our measure of head size. Okay? For each individual, we'll have a different value for F4, average value. Okay? And we have a problem with this, number 1. Go ahead.
This possibility is not open when the fourth formant frequencies have not been reported for the sets of vowels being compared.
Everything was fine except for you've got too many high tonics. 你的 tonic 最高的留到最后. You have the right idea. Stress, stress, tonic stress, 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 tonic stress, 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 last tonic stress. Da 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 da. That sounded like Woody Woodpecker. Okay. So try that. Let's see. Let me read that sentence to you and then see if you can sort of lower some of your non-final tonics. But this possibility is not open when the fourth formant frequencies,应该是这样. But this possibility is not open when the fourth formant frequencies have not been reported for the sets of vowels being compared. So we're going to go up high for compared. The other tonics, the pre-final tonics, are going to be higher but not that high. Can you try it again?
But this possibility is not open when the fourth formant frequencies have not been reported for the sets of vowels being compared.
You got it. That's what I meant. That's exactly what I meant. So apply that in the future. Tonics are higher than just the plain old stressed syllables, but if it's not the final tonic in the sentence or in the utterance, maybe it'll be the final tonic of a phrase that's very important, like if it's a finhao or something, it will be pretty high. But if it's not utterance final, don't make the tonic too high, because you need that high pitch to signal the end of the utterance. Okay, so one problem is we usually do not have F4 data. When people collect formant data, very often it's only F1, F2, or F1, F2, F3. We usually don't have F4. So if we don't have the data, forget it. This is not going to work. Go on.
An alternative method is to assume that each set of vowels is representative of the complete range of a speaker's vowel quality.
That was really nice. There's one picky thing I can point out, but that was a very good reading, especially because you said an alternative method. Is it a compound? No, in theory, it should be alternative method, but Annie said alternative method, and it was correct because Contrast, exactly. We talked about one method. Here's one method. Here's an alternative method. So you got it spot on. That was really good. The only picky thing I'd pick at is representative of the complete range. 那个可以 tonic 可以跟 continuation rise 可以明显一点，然后 pause. That's the only thing. Everything else was great. Of the complete range of a speaker's vowel qualities. Okay? Keep going and then we'll explain it.
Then we can express the common frequency of each vowel in terms of the total range of that moment in that speaker's voice.
All right, here's method 2. Instead of using F4, which we don't have F4 data, so we have to forget it. The other thing we could do, or one of the other things we could do, is we assume. So 另外一个假设, our first 假设 is that F4 corresponds to head size. Here's a different 假设 for a different method, and that is if we take the vowel values, or the values for all of the vowels in a speaker's entire range, 就是一个人他整个 range, 他所有的 form and data for their range. 然后呢每一个母音我们就给它算一个东西. So we express the form and frequency of each vowel in terms of the total range of that form in the speaker's voice. So 这里出现一个 E, 那里也出现另外一个 E. One of them is stressed, the other one is unstressed. One of them is at the end of the sentence, one's in the middle, one's at the beginning. 所有的在不同的地方出现的 E, 我们全部把所有的 data 全部收集起来. 然后呢 what are we going to do with that? We're going to use that as a representative of that vowel for that speaker. So we can express the form and frequency of each vowel in terms of the total range of the form of that formant in the speaker's voice. 对，所以每一个母音我们就会算一个值. And then this should minimize the differences between extreme vowels, falsely assuming that all speakers of all languages pronounce E, A, U in much the same way. So we're going to figure out the values for each vowel compared to all of the others in that person's range. We're assuming then that 每个人的 E, 每个人的 A, 每个人的 U 的发音都差不多，这是错误的。可是我们现在做个假设来用这个 method. So let's keep going and see if it'll get clearer.
Phoneticians do not really know how to compare acoustic data on the sounds of one individual with those of another. We cannot write a computer program that will accept any individual's vowels as input and then output a narrow phonetic transcription.
Okay, he's saying something a little bit new that sort of is a conclusion or sort of is an outcome of what we're talking about. So here they're saying our goal here is to get rid of some of the individual variation because it's not convenient to use data when there's so much variation from individual to individual. We want something that's very generalizable. 我们希望我们有一些 format 的有代表性的 format data. 可是每一个 individual 都太不一样，那怎么样去算？会相差太远。虽然我们听起来都是同一个 vowel， 可是因为 individual variation， 那个 data 会相差很远，对不对？ So the first method was to try to use head size. The second method is 我们把一个人的所有的母音，把它那个计算出来，然后这个母音跟那个母音的差别，我们用那个来算出 formants， 来做出一些 format data. Okay, so they're trying to 一个人的所有的 E， 这个地方的 E， 另外一个地方的 E， 第三个地方的 E， 平均起来，这个变成 E 的一个代表。平均起来的话，那最高的、最低的，它会稍微没有那么 extreme， 对不对？所有的 E 我们全部放在一起平均起来，所有的 A 全部放在一起平均起来，我们再来比较 E 跟 A。 要不然这个人的 E 可能非常高，那个人的 E 非常他别的地方那个 E 可能非常低。We're just going to try to get representative values of the vowels. I don't think this was really clear. I don't think it was clear enough myself when I was saying it, but now I think it's pretty clear. 所以他就是说 let's go over it again to make sure that we got it. So each set of vowels is representative of the range of a speaker's vowel qualities. Then we can express the form and frequency of each vowel in terms of the total range of that formant in the speaker's voice. 所以我们就所有的出现不同的地方的那个母音平均起来，用这个来代表这个母音的 formant data 是这样，这个那个是那样子。要不然那个 individual data 我们没有办法比较这个 speaker 和那个 speaker， 所以我们现在一个 speaker 里面把它那个 vowel data 变得比较固定，不要太 extreme 或者太不要有两个 extreme， 让它比较偏中间一点。Okay, that's the best I can do on this now. Let's keep going.
Much of the work of the applied phonetician today is concerned with computer speech technology and is directed toward improving speech synthesis systems. The greatest challenges in the field of speech synthesis are concerned with improvements in intonation and rhythm. Synthetic speech often sounds unnatural because the intonation is too stereotyped. To get the correct pitch changes, one must know pitch changes. One must know the speaker's attitude toward the world in general and to the topic under discussion in particular.
Topic under discussion.
Topic under discussion in particular.
All right, let's understand this. First, the last sentence of the preceding paragraph. We cannot just take vowels from anybody and then output a phonetic transcription. Remember when I posted on Facebook, there was this vowel trainer where you hear different speakers producing vowels and you're supposed to identify them? Did some of you try that out? 你们有印象吗? I posted a link and I thought Wendy tried it out. Okay, right. Now, at the beginning, you probably made a lot of mistakes. No?
I remember that 25 questions and I got 35 and I got 30.
Okay, so you got 5 wrong. That was a very good score. I got about the same number wrong. It's my native language, my native dialect. But the problem is that, for example, and which are a problem in Taiwan English, there's a great range of and in American English if you're talking to different speakers. So, for example, bed will sound more like bad in some people's speech. And they put them together, 不同的人，它是一样放在那里让你听. So this person is saying and that person is saying their sounds like to me compared to the other speaker's But if I heard that other speaker just speaking normally, I would have no trouble, 因为我知道他的尺度会不一样。这个不同尺度的人跟这个人放在一起，我们那个跟没有绝对值。If it's this speaker, 他的就是 but in this speaker, 他的就是 and their is maybe. For example, do you understand what I'm saying? So we can't take some data from this person and some data from that person and expect them to make any sense. So will sometimes be but for this person, is which is why he says we cannot write a computer program that will accept any individual's vowels as input and then output a narrow phonetic transcription because we're going to make mistakes because different people have different values for the vowels. We're clear on that, right? So this makes it really, really hard for speech recognition by computer. It's really hard. There's so much dialect and individual variation. It's really hard for a computer to get this right. You can't expect it to get it all right. He says we just cannot do it. We can raise the probability that it's right. We can raise the rate of accurate transcriptions, but we can't expect it to ever be completely right. It's not going to happen. Okay? And if you've ever tried out speech recognition with your computer, and I've mentioned this before, have you tried it out with Word? 你们试过没有? Okay, do you know about this function in Word? Right. We tried it then, right? Yes, I remember. So some of you anyway. Do you remember from freshman English? Did we do it in all sections? I had you try to transcribe or try to read something into Word, and then they will do speech recognition and type it out for you. And you can do it in both English and Chinese, depending on your system. I have English. I guess you have Mandarin for yours. According to what my students tell me, the rate of accuracy is much better for English than Chinese. The rate of accuracy for Chinese was about 60%. 60%. Do you know what I'm talking about, Tina?
I don't remember I did this.
Okay, I don't know if I did it in all sections now. I'm not sure. But under Tools in Word, you can choose speech recognition. And then you train it. You read a few paragraphs into it that they give you, and then it will type them out. And if it makes mistakes, you tell it, and then it will correct it. So after you've trained it for a while, you can use Word to do speech recognition for you. You just read in what you want to type, and the computer will recognize what you're saying and type it out for you. You haven't done that before? Okay, so maybe I only did it in one section. You were probably in my own section, Annie. The other two sections 可能没有做. Anyway, we had 2 hours a week, and the others had only 1 with me. So I probably only did it in one of the sections. So those of you who haven't tried it, try it out. Put it down. I've given this as an assignment every year. Go to Word, go to Tools, and then it's called 语音 or something like that in Chinese, I forget. You'll find it. Go under Tools, 工具. And then try out the speech recognition. Just get a paragraph in Chinese. Okay. They call it that? So long?
Yes.
Okay, good. And we've got it. Just get a paragraph in Chinese, read it, and see how it does. They have only Chinese. They don't have English, right?
I don't know, but I guess we can try to figure it out.
Because my impression is 它可能没有别的语言，它可能只有一个语言 because it takes up a huge amount of memory. 它真的是很耗资源的东西. So whatever you have, try it out. Mine is in English. I use an English system. Wendy? Wendy 有问题吗？
不知道是哪边在哪个 tool。
Oh, Word. Word 工具。它可能变了，这是旧版。I'm sorry, my stuff is out of date. I don't want to change systems. So you'll have to find it in the new system. Do you have details, Jerome?
No, I haven't tried it out, so I don't have details.
Okay. Annie, do you know? Do you know exactly how to find it in a newer system? Mine is XP. I'm using Windows XP. Oh, that's why we can communicate. Okay. If you have a newer system, find it yourself. That's your job. Find it yourself. Find speech recognition. 语音辨识系统. Wherever it is. Under the old system, it's under Word, Tools, 工具下面的语音 or something like that. Speech recognition in English, I think. Find it and try it out. Read a paragraph. This is an assignment. Do it, okay? And I want you to tell me how accurate it is. Try out a paragraph. Read it. And then if it's not good enough, you can do further training. At least I think it still works the same. You can train it some more so it gets used to your voice. It makes adjustments for your individual variation. And then it will do better in the future. There is another thing to try out, to compare it with. And it is Dragon. Find it online, Dragon. I believe you can do it online for free. You may be able to download it for free as well. So Dragon Systems. Just look up Dragon and speech recognition. I have a Dragon speech app on my iPad. If you have an iPad or iPhone, get the Dragon app. It's free. I'm sure they have other ones you pay for, but the one I'm using is free, and it works very well. 它准确率很高 for English. It's very good. So for English, look for Dragon online. If you have an iPad or iPhone or something similar, get the app. Try it out. If you have just a regular PC, I believe you can either do it online or you can probably download a program as well. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure you can do it online. So try out both of them. Try out Word, try out Dragon, and see how it does. Okay, Dragon may have Chinese as well, but try out whatever you can. 有中文就是中文，只有英文就用英文. Okay, assignment. And tell me, report back to me how well each one did. Okay, let's go on.
In addition, the syntax of the utterance must be taken into account, as well as various higher-level pragmatic considerations, such as whether the word or a synonym of it has been used in a
whether the word or a synonym of it
whether the word or a synonym of it has been used in a previous sentence.
All right, let's just stop there for a minute to make sure we're understanding. Now, vowels are already a problem. We already saw in the previous paragraph that a computer cannot be expected to give the correct transcription for every single vowel from every person because there's just too much variation. Then it says the next thing that's really hard in speech technology. Now they're talking about speech synthesis. So speech recognition is 语音辨识, and that's called ASR, automatic speech recognition. What we're talking about now, I have no explanation for that, unless there was a power failure, but the lights were fine. I don't know what happened. The next one is speech synthesis, which is called 语言合成语言, 合成语言, that's what we call it. 合成语言, synthesized speech, 合成语言. So, you've read about it already in vowels and consonants, that it's hard to get a computer to listen well, and it can produce human speech, and it's actually pretty good, but there are still lots of bugs in it. Do any of you use Siri? Do any of you, okay, how does Siri do?
I mean, it talks or just
Does it understand you correctly most of the time?
unless I speak correctly.
Or you have to speak very carefully?
Yeah.
Okay, then?
Because it works better when in English than in Chinese.
Okay, that was my experience that I just mentioned. The English works better than the Chinese for a word as well. And so if you speak clearly, it usually understands you, and then it will respond.
Yeah. But
And-
it only shows on the screen, not it didn't speak back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Maybe
Ah.
I turned off the
So you could get it to speak.
yeah.
So turn it on and try it.
Okay.
Have you listened to it before?
No.
Try it out. Anybody else have Siri on an iPhone? Okay. The point here is, what is the really hard thing? We already talked about one really hard thing in speech recognition. Now we're talking about speech synthesis. What's a really hard thing? What is the hardest part? Intonation and rhythm. So timing. Humans are extremely, extremely, extremely sensitive to timing. You know, that's why we're so interested in wideband spectrograms, because we want to know the changes from 1 millisecond to the next, and we're sensitive to them. Up to, let's say, even less than 20 milliseconds, we are sensitive to them. You know, it only takes like a difference of a few milliseconds and we can perceive it. And it will change our whole attitude toward what we hear with different pauses or different lengths. We're very, very, very sensitive to timing, we humans. Computers are not good at capturing all those differences in timing that we want them to get. We humans do it because we react emotionally to them. We apply it automatically. But it's really hard to get a computer to react in the same ways we do because these differences are very, very sheet. They're really, really hard. And we don't understand them. We react that way. We know what we're doing. We know how a certain utterance makes us feel. But it's hard for us to analyze it and tell a computer how to do the same thing. 就是会听会有感觉是一回事，可是把它分析起来是另外一个问题。So timing is one, and that's rhythm. The other one is intonation, 高高低低的. That's really hard to get the computer to do the right things. That gives the speech the right feeling. That will give the listener the right feeling when they hear the speech. Okay? It says that synthetic speech often sounds unnatural because the intonation is too stereotyped. 太刻板化了. So, are you going now? All the questions, are you going now? They do it in a very robot-like way. Okay? It will be different from if we're listening to a real person if they say, oh, are you going now? Okay? Are you going now? We have a lot of ways of giving different messages. But the computer will just, are you going now? Because that's all we'll probably teach it. And it won't know when it should use which one. So, in other words, we have to know the speaker's attitude, right? One of them, they're being seductive. One of them, they're being neutral. One of them, they're angry. We have to know which one it is. And how's the computer going to know that? In addition, the syntax of the utterance must be taken into account because we know that, what? If we have mentioned a word before, what happens? we de-stress it. And even if we haven't mentioned that word, but we've talked about that thing using a different word, we still have to de-stress the word when it comes up, if it means the same thing or nearly the same thing. Okay? Let's go on.
The rhythm of the sentence depends not only on the segmental influences discussed in earlier parts of this book, but also on the particular emphasis that the speaker wishes to convey at that moment.
Okay, so right now, because we are paying special attention to one certain thing, or maybe there's a certain thing that the students didn't understand well, so we'll emphasize certain words. Depending on the situation, what information is most important to the people at that time, it's going to change. Let's go on.
If we are going to make synthetic speech lively and interesting, we have to develop computer programs that are very linguistically sophisticated and can also simulate human emotions.
So the computer has to keep track of, is this word new, or did it occur before, or did a synonym occur before, and it's going to have to change its emphasis later on. That's a very, very complicated program you have to write. Just that thing alone, right? 这个字出现过没有？你要写这样的一个电脑的程式，已经蛮复杂了。而另外一个是，它要模拟人，就是这种那个喜怒哀乐，那很难。Let's go on.
Speech recognition systems are largely the province of engineers, but phoneticians also play a part. For a long time, we have been able to use computers to distinguish single words, such as the digits
Single words,
such as the digits 0 through 9. More recently, several systems have been developed that can recognize limited sets of words in task-specific situations in which the computer can structure the dialogue. For example, in an airline reservation system.
Airline reservation system, because reservation system comes first.
In an airline reservation system, the computer can ask, which day of the month do you wish to travel? At what time?
At what time?
At what time? On what airline? To what airport? Each of these questions has only a limited set of possible answers. Computers can do all this and more with sufficient accuracy for commercial purposes, but they cannot as yet serve as court reporters, producing an accurate written transcript of ordinary speech
or
ordinary speech as spoken by people with a wide range of accents and different personal characteristics.
Very good. The last sentence I think we all understand. We can't do that. We've already discussed that. But computers do better at recognizing speech if there is only a limited number of possible answers. For example, what day of the week are you leaving? How many possible answers do we have? Right. That makes it easier. If there's only a limited number of possible answers, it can do pretty well. But if it has to understand everything in a language, it's nearly impossible. Go on.
We will conclude this section with a few comments on speaker identification in legal proceedings. Spectrograms of a person's voice are sometimes called voice prints, and they are said to be as individual as fingerprints. This is a greatly exaggerated claim. As if it were true, it would be very useful. Banks would be able to verify a depositor's identity over the telephone, and the police would be able to make a positive identification of criminals whose conversations have been recorded. Some individual characteristics are recorded in spectrograms. The position of the fourth and higher formats in most vowels is indicative. Is indicative of a speaker's voice of a speaker's voice quality rather than the linguistic aspect of the sounds. Aspects of the sounds. Similarly, the exact locations of the higher formats in nasals depend to a great extent on individual social physiological characteristic of the speaker.
Do the last 4 words, 5 words.
Physiological characteristics of the speaker.
Very good. Okay, so he's just going to say a few things at the end now about speaker identification, which you've already talked about earlier. We've said it now at least twice, now the 3rd time, that spectrograms are not like fingerprints. We cannot use them to definitively identify somebody, one person as opposed to another person. If we could do that, it would be very useful. We could identify people calling on the phone, and you could get your data that way. We could identify criminals if we'd recorded their conversations. But it doesn't work that way. We do have some individual characteristics, mainly for F4 and above. And they tell us something about a speaker's voice quality. Less about vowels, for example, the difference between ah and ah. We don't get that usually in F4 and above. They tell us more about the individual's voice quality. And it says, what else? The exact locations of the higher formants and nasals depend to a great extent on individual physiological characteristics. 你自己的那个生理构造就是这样子. Those are mainly what influence the higher formants. Let's go on. Yeah.
So, I've seen some movies of FBI or CIA that when a person
Makes a call.
And they identify which person it is, immediately it's like, it just moving, right?
Yes. They can actually get some help from spectrograms and other things. They're different tools that will give you help, but they can only give you a probability. 它可能是这个人是那个人的78%的几率. That's about all they can do. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
There are also a number of features observable on spectrograms that indicate a speaker's speech habits and do not depend on the speaker's language. For example, there is a great deal of individuality in the length and type of aspiration that occurs after initial voiceless stops.
Okay, that's one way to measure difference between individuals or differences. For example, take. Wow, excuse me, my voice. Take or take or take. I have a lot of different levels of aspiration, right? All of them are okay, they're all t. But each person probably has their own habits about how much aspiration they use. Take or take or take. Very little at all. For example, okay?
The rate of transition of the formants after voice stops also varies from one individual to another.
Okay, so bad. 它可能是那个 voice stop 到 vowel 的那个变异也有一点可以用来辨识不同的人、不同的个人。Okay? The rate of transition 就是说它从 voice stop 变异到 formant 的那个速率 ，OK， 有多快 ？The rate of transition。Okay?
Individuals also vary considerably in their mean pitch and in the range of fundamental frequencies that they use.
All right, so one is your 平均的 F0， 每个人的平均 F0 不一样，然后每个人的 range。Some people have really wide ranges of frequencies, and others speak in a really flat voice. You can hardly tell any variation at all, right? 所以每个人的习惯不一样。Some people have very flat voices. Some people have really exaggerated ups and downs. Some people are somewhere in between. So those are different individual characteristics we can use to describe the differences from one individual to another. Okay?
Nobody knows how many individuals share similar characteristics. There are occasions when one might say that the voice on a
When one might say that.
When-
one不用那么重。
when one might say that
one不用那么重。Listen again. There are occasions when one might say that. One 因为那是个 dummy pronoun 是根本没有指谁。When one might say that.
when one might say that the voice on a particular recording is probably not the s-
Probably, that's stress, so you gotta slow down.
is probably not the same as the voice on some other recording.
On some other recording,
On some other recording,
contrast, right?
and times when one might say that
When one 不要重。
when one
When one might say.
that the voice on a recording could
When
Be-
the voice on a recording could be the same.
the voice on a recording could be the same as a voice on another.
On another.
On another.
Right. That's what I was saying to Wendy. 我们就是算几率。我们就是他可以告诉你大概是他，有可能是他，不同的几率。Yeah.
An expert's opinion on the probability of two voices being the same certainly
短句。
being the same.
Everybody's chiming in. Stop at the end of a clause. There should be a comma after same. Pretend there's a comma there. There isn't, actually in a composition we wouldn't put it there, but pretend there's a comma, it will help you read.
An expert's opinion on the probability of two voices being the same
Being the same.
certainly has an evidential value, the weight given to that evidence being for the jury to decide.
So an expert might say there is an 82% probability that this voice is the same as that voice. Does that decide the case? No. Who's going to decide the case? The jury. Yeah, 陪审团. You don't have that system in Taiwan. Okay? 陪审团, jury.
But this is not the best way of reporting the results of a comparison between
Comparison.
between two voices. It is impossible to make a valid calculation of the probability of making a correct identification in any particular case, as no two cases are ever the same. There are seldom two equally good recordings of the voices in question, with both speakers talking for comparable amounts of time.
Talking.
Both speakers talking
For comparable.
for comparable amounts of time.
Comparable is also correct.
The known and unknown voices.
What are we going to stress?
Unknown.
Right.
The known and unknown voices may be saying the same words.
The same words.
The same words. But they are seldom both talking naturally, neither one being excited.
Neither one being excited.
Neither one being excited or worried about making a recording, and neither one bored or angry. On any pair of recordings, it's possible that the one voice is disguised or deliberately imitating the other voice.
Right.
In theory, it would be possible to set up experiments that make these points that take these points and many others into account when comparing a particular pair of voices, but without elaborate
Stop it stops.
Elaborate prior testing. It is literally impossible to calculate the the statistical probability of being right or wrong in a particular case. particular
Okay,
case.
right. Your reading is really very nice overall, but you rush a bit too much. You're not stopping at the places you need to stop. Phrasing 就是断句问题，你要开始多留意断句 and then put the continuation rise in. That's good. And also the particular and calculate. Let's go on. Last paragraph of the chapter.
The better way of reporting the results of an investigation into whether two voices are the same is in terms of the likelihood ratio.
It's very close to radio, isn't it? With a tap, it would become radio, except we make it ratio.
The likelihood ratio, the likelihood that the two voices in question are the same as the same as compared with the likelihood that they are different.
Likelihood ratio.
Likelihood ratio.
Okay, it's a compound. Go on.
This is a more complex statistical measure.
Yeah.
But it does not depend on prior probabilities being known.
Okay, so it's hard to get two recordings that are really comparable. Maybe one person is really angry and the other person is just really bored. So if you want to compare these two recordings and then give your opinion on whether it's the same voice or not, it's really hard. Because in addition to the inherent fallibility of spectrograms, the recordings may be so different. One is really loud, one is really quiet, one is really angry, one is really calm. It's just really, really hard to do this. One person may be trying to imitate someone else's voice. Some people are really, really good at that, imitating someone else's voice. And if they're good at that, it's going to make it really, really tough. So in the end, he's saying all we can do is give you an approximate probability, 大概是一样的，或者大概不太可能是一样的，一个百分比这样子，一个几率。And then it says that a better way of reporting the results of an investigation into whether they're the same or not is the likelihood that two voices are the same as compared with the likelihood that they are different. Okay, so they're saying that 你先比较一下，它是一样的声音的几率有多高，它是不同的人的那个几率有多高。其实是两个不同的东西，算起来也蛮麻烦的。And it says that it's pretty hard. The likelihood that two voices in questions are the same. Yeah. So 你要比较一下，他这两个人是一样的，跟他两个是不一样的这个几率来做个比较。He's just saying this is a different statistical method. This method produces better results. 然后它比较跟之前的 probabilities 比较没有关系。And don't worry about that, okay? It's just saying that it's hard to come up with the probabilities. There are some methods that work better than others. But none of them is really absolute. None of them is really, really reliable. That's all. We finished the chapter. Okay, wow. That's really something. You have only a page and a half of exercises. You have only a page and a half of exercises, but these are probably the most difficult ones in the book. And like I said, don't freak out, don't get depressed, and don't get into a funk. Don't push yourself too much, but give it your best effort. We want you to try and read this first spectrogram. Okay? And then you've got the next one identified, and it tells you what you need to do. You need to transcribe, you need to segment, and blah, blah, blah. And then you've got a little math. We've already been over this last class. So if you have big problems, you can post them over Facebook, and then we can maybe offer some help. But do your best. Question, Wendy?
I just flipped through the pages. We spent over a month on this chapter.
That's fast. For a chapter this heavy? That's fast. We haven't finished everything, because next hour we have the Decibels tutorial, and then there's one web page that I told you is about musical instruments. That one is really fun. We have to find time to do that. So even if we have to take time away from something else, we will have to find time to do that. That one is really fun. So this is it for Chapter 8. We'll mark the exercises on Monday. Please work at it. I mean, give it your best effort. Start early, post your questions. So it goes relatively smoothly on Monday. Okay, we really need to be thorough about this chapter. That will be it for 8. We're going to start on 9 on Monday after we mark 8. Okay? Break, and then decibels. Take a break. Okay, make it fast. We're going to start on the tutorial. Everybody? We don't have much time left. We've taken up a lot of time for different things. The chapter went on longer than we expected, but at least we finished it. And then they needed to re-record 3 of you reading the text. These things happen. There haven't been that many glitches, but when they happen, we just have to fix them. There's not going to be enough time to finish the tutorial. It's really heavy. So I'm thinking we can either break it up, I can start it now, or we can do the whole thing next class. Which would you prefer? You'd like to break it up? That's fine. That's Carol who suggested it. How about the rest of you? What do you think? Break it up? Okay, we'll start because it's heavy. And what you can do is you get the introduction to it, and then you can look at it yourself. The file is online, so it's open for you all to access and to look at. So when it starts getting confusing, you can start reading it yourself more carefully. And at least we'll get a start on it. Okay, I haven't broken it up in other years, at least not intentionally. But we'll try it out and see how it goes. Please get your calculators out and ready. You won't need them much, or maybe we won't even get to that part today. I have a feeling I left my calculator in my office. 对，我有带来，可是放在办公室. Okay. Okay. Now this is not the tutorial itself. This is just an introduction. Remember I told you that there were 2 paragraphs in the earlier editions of Lattifoged that were omitted in subsequent editions. Starting with edition 5, they were gone. 1 year, we were almost done with 8, and I thought, we haven't talked about decibels yet. It's because the paragraphs were missing. 它没有东西提醒我要去教这个东西. Because the paragraphs were gone. Other years, when we ran into these, I knew that we had to do the tutorial to explain what was going on. All right, so 12 is called Understanding Decibels, a PowerPoint slideshow. There are a number of differences between the 5th edition of Peter Lattifoged's Course in Phonetics, which we are this is not the new version. 对，我今天要稍微改一下. Never mind, we'll use the old one. Okay, 这个稍微修改过了. Differences between the 5th and 6th edition of Lattifoged's A Course in Phonetics and earlier editions. One is the mention of various issues relating to amplitude and intensity. In the earlier editions, he had these paragraphs about amplitude in Chinese, 振幅, and intensity, 强度. The following 2 paragraphs from the 4th edition do not appear in the 5th or 6th. So here we go. This will probably be 一头雾水, but see if you can understand as much as you can as you go along. Or try to understand as much as you can as you go along. In general, the loudness of a sound depends on the size of the variations in air pressure that occur. So far, so good, right? 声音的大小要看气压变化的那个差别有多大，对不对？这差别有很大的时候，声音就会变得很大；差别不大的时候，声音就比较小。No problem with that, right? Just as frequency is the acoustic measurement most directly corresponding to the pitch of a sound, we know that frequency and pitch are related, but they're not the same thing. Which one is physical and which one is subjective? Frequency is physical and it's also objective, and pitch is subjective, right? It depends on our ears and the way they filter and perceive sounds. In the same way, acoustic intensity is the appropriate measure corresponding to loudness. So our relatively objective measure is intensity, and our subjective 感受 is loudness. So we're going to talk about how to calculate intensity, which gives us the sensation of loudness or quietness of a sound. The intensity is proportional to the average size. Now you know you're going to get lost, right? 讲到这里可能就会有问题。The intensity is proportional to the average size or amplitude of the variations in air pressure. Well, actually, if you slow down, you'll get it. 看那个气压的变化，那个一个声音的强度就是有一个比例上的，就是有比例上的关系。It's proportional. It is usually measured in decibels. 我们用分贝来测量我们这个对声音大小的感受。So far, so good, no problem. Decibels are abbreviated as small d, capital B, because capital B stands for bell. It's the guy who thought up this idea of using decibels to measure the loudness of sounds. So it is usually measured in decibels relative to the amplitude of some other sounds. Decibels are relative. They are not absolute. The same way we're talking about vowels. Vowel differences are also relative. 它关系总是一样的，可是呢，尺度会变，对不对？ That's what we just said about vowels, right? So, in a sort of similar way, okay, it is usually measured in decibels relative to the amplitude of some other sounds. In the same way, we figure out decibels by comparing two sounds. That's what I was getting at. You cannot give any absolute measure of the loudness of a sound because there is no such thing. There is no absolute loudness, absolute quietness. We don't have it. We have to compare this sound with this sound. We can try to get the quietest sound we can hear and then use that as a basis for comparing all the other sounds, and that's what we do. But we have to have a baseline for comparison. 没有比较的话，根本就没有成立，没有办法成立。Okay? So keep in mind that decibels are relative. They're a relative measurement. We're always comparing them to something else. Remember when we were talking about suprasegmentals, we said something similar. Stress is always relative compared to something else. You do something in this syllable that we don't do in that syllable, then it's stressed. So suprasegmentals like stress, those are always relative. They're never absolute. Now, loudness, which is actually one of the suprasegmentals, is loudness of a sound. That is always figured, calculated, in comparison to some other sound. So far, so good, right? Technically, when he says technically, then we're going to have a lot of scientific stuff. To get the decibel difference, one has to compare the power ratio, where the power is defined as the square of the mean amplitude, right? We're flying away, sort of? Never mind, I'll just read through it and it'll be explained in the tutorial. To get the decibel difference, one has to compare the power ratio, where the power is defined as the square of the mean amplitude, mean is 平均, average, variation in air pressure. The difference in decibels is 10 times the common logarithm, 对数, of the power ratio of the two sounds, or 20 times the log of the amplitude ratio. Made no sense, right? Made no sense. That's what I knew would be a problem. It was in the old edition. And I knew that up to here was okay, but here we don't have enough background. We need to learn about power and logarithms and intensity and all that stuff. We have to learn all that in order to understand this. That's why I had you do the logarithms first. 那个算已经解决了。The human ear can hear. Now it's okay. The human ear can hear, perhaps tolerate would be a better word, a range of about 120 decibels. So the range of sounds that we can handle, from the very, very, very quietest sound up to the loudest sound that we can 忍耐, 忍受, 而且不能忍受太久, because it will probably break our eardrum or make us deaf. Goes from 0 decibels to 120 decibels. 我们的 range 就是这样子. Okay, keep that in mind. That's important. 0 to 120. You probably need that for the test. Okay, that much you need to know. So 0 to 100 decibels, 120 decibels. That's the range of human hearing. 0, we can barely hear anything. 120, it's so loud, it's probably going to break our eardrum. Or it's going to make us deaf if we listen too long. Although if you persist in listening to sounds 110 to 120 decibels above the quietest sound you can hear, you will soon go deaf. As many rock musicians have found out. And if you look into the biographies of famous rock musicians who give really, really loud performances, most of them suffer hearing loss. Almost all of them have to wear earplugs when they're performing. They have really loud performances, 因为他希望观众很嗨. And it really does work. And there's something I discovered at a recent concert. It actually is by Sigur Rós. You know them from Iceland? You don't know them? They're pretty popular. I happened to just be listening outside in the hall. I was in the building in the hallway. And the sound was so loud, it was making my body vibrate. I mean, it's not just those really loud sounds that make our bodies vibrate. I was driving to school today and I had the radio on, and I found that different levels of volume made different parts of my body vibrate. So now you know that every space has its own frequency. I could feel different frequencies making different parts of my body vibrate. If you're very sensitive when you're driving a car, because in the car you're sitting on the seat and that's attached to the sound system, I could feel suddenly at a certain pitch, a part of my leg would be vibrating. So it's not just really loud music that does it. I didn't have it on that loud. It didn't feel that loud in the car. Of course, it's louder in the car because of traffic, but I had the windows closed. So in fact, different frequencies are going to make different parts of our body vibrate anyway. But at this very loud concert, I could feel my body just being set into a very big vibration. And so that's one of the things that makes people high at a concert. All right? So anyway, you have to protect yourself from those really loud sounds. It will really hurt your hearing. When one sound has an intensity of 5 decibels greater than another, then it is approximately twice as loud. We're going to change that a little bit in the tutorial because I checked many sources. These numbers are not as accurate as I think they should be, okay? 我觉得有更准的. So if a sound has an intensity 5 decibels greater than another, it's about twice as loud. So decibels work on a logarithmic scale. 不是说10 decibels 那乘以2 20 decibels, no, just twice as loud. 不是这样子. Okay? 5 decibels, it will sound twice as loud, more or less. Actually, it's 6 decibels, not 5. A change in intensity of 1 decibel is a little more than the just noticeable difference in loudness. So from to a tiny, tiny bit louder, that's about 1 decibel. 1 decibel is a little more than that. Figure 8.3 shows the waveform of the phrase, "We saw 3 dogs." And underneath it, a record of the intensity. Okay, I lost my place here. Intensity in decibels. Intensity is always a relative measure. One sound has an intensity of so many decibels, more or less than another. We know that. The 0 point in figure 8.3 is arbitrarily taken to be the level recorded for the silence. How do we figure 0 decibels? It's actually the quiet room noise. This is not a quiet room. We've got this on, we've got air conditioning. But if you have a recording studio, and I gave you a link on Facebook called an anechoic chamber. Echoic means 会有回音 ，an 是 negative， 是没有回音的一个房间的话 is an anechoic chamber. I put that online on Facebook, so you can go back to that now, and now you know what we're talking about. It's a room with the very, very lowest level of sound that we can create. It's got walls that absorb sound, so that if you make any sound, the sound won't bounce off the walls and be loud. It will be absorbed by the material in the walls. So you can hear, it's creepy, you hear no sounds at all, basically. But you will hear the sound of air molecules moving. You think that's crazy? In a very, very, very quiet place like the desert, you can actually hear that, the air molecules moving and the blood rushing in your head. If it gets really quiet, you can hear that. The point is that you can't have 0 noise. There's always some sound. So we try to make a room as quiet as we possibly can, and we call that 0 decibels. That's what we compare other levels of sound or loudness to, is that very quietest room sound that we can achieve. That's 0 decibels, okay? So everything else is going to be a number in comparison to that 0. So far, so good? Yes? We're just going to finish this page. We won't go to the actual tutorial. So actually the quiet room noise at the beginning and end of the utterance. The vowels in we and C have a level of about 34 decibels above the 0 that we're talking about. So we and C, the E is quite loud. It's about 34 decibels. The vowels in saw and dogs have about 10 decibels greater still, making them well over twice as loud. So saw, dogs, our mouth is open wider. They have more volume. They're louder. So they're going to be about 10 decibels greater, about 44 decibels, which makes them more than twice as loud. Remember, twice as loud is about 5 or 6 decibels. The two fricatives, s and th, are much lower, s having a mean of about 17 decibels and th being about 13 decibels above the baseline. So remember we were talking about th being the quietest fricative, the quietest consonant in English, th, quietest sound. Generally, vowels such as ah and aw, in which the mouth is more open, are about 5 decibels greater than the vowels e and u, assuming all these vowels have been said with an equal degree of stress. So if we put them in the same phonetic environment or we emphasize them equally much, then ah and ah will have a sound about 5 decibels greater than e and u. In this particular phrase, the words saw and dogs were stressed, so their vowels have an even higher intensity. So if we add stress, the decibel level will go up. Stress makes them louder. Loudness is not the most important marker of stress, but it is one of them. In this particular case, we read that. In any utterance, the actual intensity of a segment will depend on many factors, such as its position in the sentence, 它在句首、句中、句尾. The degree of stress on each word, 每个字的重音有多大, and the personal characteristics of the speaker. Okay, so actually these two paragraphs were not so bad except for that one sentence, right? That one sentence is kind of hopeless. We'll just finish this page and then we'll be done for today. Perhaps Professor Ladefoged omitted these paragraphs because they introduced a number of new issues that he felt he didn't have enough space to go into deeply in the book. He does explain them in another book, Elements of Acoustic Phonetics, and Professor Johnson explains them in his book. It's Acoustic and Auditory Phonetics. And it was because I felt that considerable additional background knowledge was required in order to understand this paragraph that I prepared the following slideshow on decibels. Now, without the paragraph as a reminder, it might be easy to forget about decibels completely, but they are very important in understanding acoustics, including acoustic phonetics, so we will proceed. And if you feel that you have a pretty good handle on how logarithms work, it wasn't that hard, was it? It's time to begin the decibel slideshow. Be prepared to work through the material slowly and carefully. You may need to go over it a number of times to absorb it all, or at least the main points. Here is the link. The slideshow contains names of units of measurement that may be unfamiliar to you. Here's a site that helps you convert one type of unit to another. 有不同的度量衡单位，不同的. And we're not usually familiar. Most of us won't be familiar with them. So you can use this site to help you convert one to the other. 一个可以转换成另外一个. For example, micropascals to microbars. 这两个你们熟吗？应该不熟。所以这个东西可以让你把一个转换成另外一个. And then it goes on to the next page. I will just open the tutorial so you know what it looks like. And then you can have a look at it yourself if you want. But we're going to do it in class next time. There, thank you. Okay, it's in a different place in the old system. This is what it looks like. This is what's coming. Okay, that gives you an idea. Okay, so that's it. All right, what do we have to do for Monday? Exercises. Exercises. What else? Sorry? Read chapter 11, see if you have any questions. Okay, that's lower priority though. Higher priority is to do your exercises. What else?
Chapter 8.
Go over all of chapter 8, take notes on it. That's part of your notes for Monday, right? Go over the whole chapter, take notes on it to make sure you understand everything. Anything else? Don't forget vowels and consonants for next Wednesday. Anything else? Get ready for decibels. Bring your calculator. Okay, that'll do. We'll see you on Monday.